Hello friends, and welcome back to the My Slice of Life podcast with me, Sharon O'Neill, your very own Highland host, and this is the bonus episode for the season, which was called Let's Get Productive. And just before we dive in, I want to remind you that this is the last episode that will be going up on YouTube. So if you are one of my listeners who only listens on YouTube, please use the link in the description for the podcast website and follow me there. It's free, just takes a couple of clicks and you won't miss out. Having said that, if the podcast ever goes video format, then it will be on YouTube, but I'm not doing that just now. I don't want you to see my pyjamas, so we're not doing video, okay? Now this week, what I do want to do is I want to highlight some of my favourite tips and bits from this season, in particular the tips that I've been using and finding helpful. And I also have something important I want to share with you at the end, so do stick around for that. So the very first thing I want to mention is thinking about what productivity means for you and not to you. Here's an example. I have a certain amount that I want to get done in any given day, and I know if I reach that, I can feel happy with my level of productivity. And that doesn't just mean doing more every day and ticking everything off my to-do list. Sometimes I have to leave a task till the next day or later in the week, or even the next week. And I've learned to be okay with that and to be comfortable with that, which is something that I used to find very, very difficult. So I think it's a good idea to have a think about what productivity means for you and find a level that you will be happy and comfortable with. It's a very individual thing, and I just don't think that I'd realised that before. So that was the first thing that I have found helpful. Another big tip, which I loved, was finding out that action creates motivation. We just need to do something, some little thing, and that can be enough to kickstart the motivation, rather than waiting for the magic moment to strike when we think the motivation fairy will arrive. If we just do something, we fire up the motivation, which can really help with procrastination as well. That's helped me a lot, just to do even a little thing, because quite often you'll do one thing and you think, oh, well, I'll just do this. I'll just do that. And it leads on to a whole lot of stuff getting done, which otherwise you wouldn't even have started. And one thing I found which kept cropping up through the season was this idea of breaking any large task into much smaller, more manageable pieces. And a lot of the information I read for the season had this idea in it. I don't think many people think like this when they're planning a job or a task. They see the big picture, not necessarily all the little steps that lead up to that. And little pieces like that can really help us to not feel overwhelmed, because we're only dealing with one little bit at a time. It makes it so much easier and takes a lot of the stress out of it. So if you've got a big job to do, break it down into tiny, tiny little pieces and just focus on doing one of them. That's all you have to do. It really does reduce the stress levels doing that. So that is a good one to use. And that leads me on to something called single tasking, a new term for me, but apparently, and I agree with this one, we need to stop multitasking and we need to focus on one thing at a time so we can give it our full attention and do it well. This cuts out the mental fatigue, cuts out the mistakes and all that time that we have to give up fixing what went wrong because we weren't really able to concentrate on the task properly, because we're spreading ourselves far too thin. So one thing at a time. And I say this as someone who is used to having 3 or 4 things, if not more, on the go at the same time. And I am trying this one. I swear, I am trying to focus on one thing at a time. And since doing this season, I've caught myself sometimes doing something. Halfway through, I think, I need to go and do, and I start something else. And I've actually told myself, no, go and finish that one first. So I am working on it. But I also want to highlight the need for prioritising. We need to work out what is the most important job that needs done and work on that. And sometimes we need to adjust slightly, Maybe you wanted to do something outside, but the weather isn't suitable. If you've prioritised your list of tasks, you'll immediately know the next most important thing you can work on. And look for that 20% of jobs that gives you 80% of the results. That should help. Now, leading on from that, my new favourite productivity tool, and I do use this one. I've mentioned it many times, and yes, I'm going to mention it again. The 2-minute rule. I love this one. There have been quite a few things this season which I've taken to, but this one has stuck with me completely. If a job will take 2 minutes or less, just do it. And if you haven't adopted this rule into your life yet, you need to try it. You'll be amazed at the difference it can make. Honestly, do it for 1 week and come back and tell me how it went for you, because I love this. I use it. There's other people in the house using it. And sometimes even it's a challenge. You know, you think something's going to take a couple of minutes longer and you think, I'm going to see if I can do it in 2 minutes. Just play with it. Have fun. 2 minutes or less. You can get a ton done. On the other hand, something which is still a big problem for me is the clutter. I know I have too much clutter around me. I've talked about it. I've advertised a lot of it online, but I want to do it on another website as well, which I haven't done yet. But it is something I'm actively working on. But clutter can be really overwhelming and it can cause a lot of stress. Not a good situation for positive productivity. So if you haven't started to tackle that clutter, whether it's in the house or the office, make it a priority and make a start. I'm saying that, I know I'm not perfect at it. Another reason we're not on video, by the way, because all you'll see is boxes behind me and you'll be like, Sharon, what are you doing with the boxes? Not very much at the moment. It's a plan. It's a plan, friends. I have a plan. But something else I have been working on, I'm telling you, I've been working on loads of stuff doing this season. I didn't think it would affect me this much, but it really has. Yes, the thing I have been working on is to try and deal with distractions. For me, this is YouTube. For some, it will be scrolling through Instagram or something similar that I don't use. I can't use it. I don't want to get into those things anyway. I know I've got quite an addictive personality and I'm not going down that road. These are just time stealers. You know it and I know it. All they do is steal our time and you can't get it back. They do nothing for our concentration levels. They do nothing for our self-esteem. In an attempt to combat that, I have put limits on it. I can go through the YouTube shorts for a few minutes or watch a couple of videos, but only after I've done what I'm meant to have done. And that leads me on to something else. Treats or rewards, to use the more professional sounding name. I mentioned this last week, and even though the experts say we shouldn't use them because we should see finishing a task as a reward, I'm keeping my treats, okay? When I've done everything I can in a day, notice I didn't say everything on my list, just everything I can in a day, I will give myself a reward of some sort. It might be a hot chocolate and a gardening video. It might be a face mask, some relaxing music. It could be Friday night glass of wine, munchies and a paranormal nightmare episode, but there will be something. I am not giving up my treats. I don't care what the expert says. I do, however, agree with the experts about keeping an eye out for negativity and challenging that whenever you notice it. I did a whole episode about it and it's something I work hard on. And I know for most people being negative is the first response to most things. And with everything that's going on around us right now, it's real easy to fall into that mindset. And I don't say any of this to mean you should keep your head in the sand and not be aware of what's happening or anything like that. I'm all too aware of what's happening. You probably are too. But we can choose how we respond to it. If you see or hear about something bad happening in the world or your own country or even your own town, you could become very negative about it. Or you couldn't. But either way, it doesn't change what you're hearing. Your emotions won't impact what's happening in the slightest. And see, once I realised that, I made a choice to at least try to be more positive. Or at the very least, to not let the negative stuff affect me and drag me down. Do you know what I mean? So I've made that choice and I try every single day. And that helps me deal with things, which in turn does allow me to keep up my productivity. You probably noticed these days that, when you feel your mood slip or you've let things get to you more than you want, you'll have noticed your productivity has probably taken a dip as well. So by choosing not to let things affect me in that way and using every blooming trick I know in the book to keep a more optimistic, a more positive outlook, I suppose you could say, That's how I keep things going. I do have the odd day where it slips. I'm not perfect, nobody's perfect, but I try. Now, another way to keep up the positive productivity is to remember those breaks. I mentioned them last week. In fact, I've mentioned them a few times. We are not machines, and we can't operate as if we were. The fact is, you will get more done if you don't wear yourself out. And if you're not used to actually putting time aside for yourself, schedule the breaks in, put them in your diary, or whatever you would normally do if you have an appointment or a hot date, or are they still a thing? Are they? I don't know. But make time for yourself. I should probably cut that bit out. We'll see. Make time for yourself. You need it, and it will work wonders for you. Don't forget to get outside as much as you can, and out in nature if you can. I know I haven't become a hippie, I just know it's good for you. So do you. I also did a whole episode about habits. Have you read James Clear's book yet, Atomic Habits? Are you noticing other podcasts mentioning habits? A lot, because I am. They're everywhere. But when you think about it, we have so many habits. We have good ones and bad ones. And yes, we can learn new and healthy ones. And we can do something about the ones we don't really want. If you're a regular listener to the podcast, you will know I am a bit of a night owl. If you are a regular to my blog, you will know my sleep has taken a real hit lately too. However, I have made a conscious effort to go to my bed a little earlier recently, and I'm getting up earlier. In fact, today I got up because of a new alarm clock I wasn't expecting. Scooby howling in his sleep. Let me tell you, if you haven't been woken up by your dog howling when you least expect it, you haven't lived. My heart was pounding. It's not even the first time he's done it. He's very vivid dreams and, barks and ruffs in his sleep and all that kind of stuff, but the howling was something else. Anyway, I'm digressing. Habits. Yes, they can be changed or new ones introduced, and if you haven't heard the episode about it, go and listen to it right after this one. So that's the main tips from the season that I use, and there are probably more, but I wanted to talk to you about something just for a minute here before I leave you this week. I know this is a really busy time of the year, and for some, not an easy time of the year, so I just wanted to remind you, me, all of us actually, that we don't need to do it all. We don't. The work will always be there. We can't do everything, and you know what, we shouldn't. So spend time on yourself. Be kind to yourself. The reality is, we're all doing our best, the best way we know how. It might not be perfect, but honestly, does it need to be? Surely we are here for more than just working ourselves to the bone. And as this season of productivity comes to a close, I want to remind you that spending time with your kids, your other half, family, friends, your dog, whoever you have in your life, well, that's just as, if not more, productive. So when it comes to prioritising your day, bear that in mind. The work will always be there. The people won't. And with that, I'm going to say thank you for listening to today's episode. I really hope you've enjoyed this season and got a lot out of it, and that you will stay with me for all the seasons to come. The next one is completely different again. At the moment anyway, that's how the podcast is running. You never know what the next topic is going to be. That's the way it's kind of panning out. So until next week, you take care of your wee self and go and be productive. Just hug everyone first.